Professor Ellis,
Yes,
I'm so sorry. Where is this presentation on Canvas?
it's in files. In the files, it says week one.
Oh, okay.
Week
Thank you.
week one, intro to PR, summer 19, I
Yeah.
think.
Okay, I
Yep.
got it.
Yep.
Thank
All right. So let's jump into it. Well, I gotta move my screen. There we go. So what we have to always think about when we consider public relations is that it's not just this thing that we do. It's something that really is embedded in cultural settings. It's embedded in every aspect of our lives. We may not think that it is, but it is. I am sitting in my home right now and I'm looking at the art that I have on the wall. And it's beautiful. I love art. And when I think about if public relations is embedded in that art in some way, I say absolutely yes, because there was a reason that I bought it, right? It may not have been promoted to me, but there was something that appealed to me that allowed me to create a relationship between me and this piece of art that's on my wall. So PR is really everywhere you look, and it occurs often when it appears as if nothing is really happening, nothing really went on. But that's not always the case. And what it does is it helps organizations and even individuals, it helps them have their own identity. It is also, however, when we think about it in a very structured way, it is a management function. Now, you would say, well, isn't it a part of communications? Yes, it is. Excuse me, but it is a management function used to communicate. It creates two-way communication. It is very planned, which you will see in your assignments. And it's also a research-based social science. I often say that it is an art and a science. That's why, say, the major itself lives in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. The reason it's an art is because you can get really creative, you can get really fun, and you can get really objective in what you create. But it's also a science in that there's a very specific and deliberate thing that you do in order to make public relations happen. All right. Oh, also, I always have to remember if there's one more bullet. Also, it is very socially responsible, which you will see in the ethics chapter that comes up in week 2. So, what PR is not, it's not spin, it's not hype, it's not propaganda, and it's not publicity. It's also not this artificial or superficial thing that we've eventually or we've come to believe based on kind of like, pop culture. And believe it or not, it's not as understood or well understood as many people might think, including some people who actually do it, sadly, right? Even some people who are in the PR industry don't really understand why they do what they do. And that sometimes is just based on lack of training or lack of good training. I'm sure, particularly for those of you who are majors or minors, you've probably told your parents what you're majoring in, or maybe relatives or friends, or maybe you have a friend in another major. Liz and Ryan may be able to relate to this. But you're talking about public relations or PR, and they're like, isn't that like when you're on the news? Or what does that really mean? Or how do you really do that? Can you get a job in that? I'm sure somebody has said that about PR, or maybe you've thought about that about PR. You will not feel that way at the end of this month. Trust me. So, Veronica, I think it was Veronica, or was it Katrina? I can't remember. Somebody said they wanted to know the difference between, I think it was Katrina,
Yeah, it was
PR and marketing. Let's get to that. Let's get to that right now. And again, you can go along with me in the slides. Now, what is PR? It is, I said, it's a management function. But what PR does, and this is the definition that you will need for all of your assignments as you produce everything. PR builds and maintains mutually beneficial relationships between an organization and its publics. That's it. It is a function that builds mutually beneficial relationships. That's it. It doesn't do anything else other than that. Now, a lot happens when you're building and maintaining relationships. That's where all the work gets done, in the building and the maintenance of relationships. All right. Adding this last piece here, on whom its success and failure depends, right? So that's what it hinges on, the success and the failure of the organization itself. Who I build a relationship with is going to be critical, and how I build a relationship is going to be critical, because the success or the failure of the organization can hinge on how that relationship is built and maintained. So I want you to really dig in and realize that it is a function that builds and maintains these mutually beneficial relationships. That's the key right there. So what's marketing then? Marketing is also a management function, but it is focused on supply and demand. So what marketing does, it says, is essentially this function that will identify what are a Publix. When we say Publix, that's not a typo. That's not like this random. Why don't we just say public? When in the public relations industry, we say Publix because we realize we have multiple identity groups that we need to speak to. So the language in the industry is Publix, public with an S, versus the public. The public can be anybody. And in the practice of public relations, what we don't want to do is to just lump our strategy into one bucket and think it should apply to everybody. That's not the approach that we want to take. So when we say Publix, we're meaning multiple groups of people, multiple identities of people, multiple communities of people, okay? So back to marketing. Management function, you're looking at the needs and the wants of folks based on the product or the service. Marketing is a very product and service-based function. So based on the needs and wants of your Publix, you're providing a product and service based on that, and there's an exchange. So it's all about supply and demand. Now notice, this is why you often see PR and marketing merge together, because PR helps me build a relationship, while marketing helps me satisfy the need. See the connection there? See why it goes so well together? If I'm specifically focused on the relationship, I can also support that with another function that helps me identify and satisfy the need. All right. So I can do one first or the other first, or I can just connect them together. And so that's why you see PR and marketing, or job titles that say PR and marketing or PR/marketing. And then sometimes that's why people get both of them confused. But again, PR is based on relationships. Marketing is based on supply and demand. Questions about that? Any questions about that? Okay, we'll keep moving. If that's the case, then what's the difference between publicity and advertising? Let's talk about that real quick. Now, publicity, often we get publicity mixed up with just public relations in general. Publicity is the result of public relations. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, y'all. I need to go get my power cord. Hold tight for 1 second. All right, I'm back. I'm sorry. So publicity, as I said, is the result of public relations. It is the result of public relations. Publicity is something that you have to do because it is I'm sorry, publicity isn't a thing that you can actually do. It's something that you gain. PR is something that I do, and publicity is something that I gain as a result of the PR that I do. So, because publicity is this uncontrolled method of placing messages in the media, it means that I have to make contact with media in order to get my message placed with media. And once that message is placed with media, I have no longer have control over what happens with that message. So it's when I send information to an outside source to be used by media, because that information really has value with my publics. I don't have control over what happens with that message, because once it gets to the people, it's up to the people to interpret and determine how that message maintains its value. So we often hear, how we often hear, oh, that's free publicity. That's what people mean when they say that. It means that publicity itself is uncontrolled. But here's the thing, it kind of cancels out. Publicity is never paid. What is paid publicity then? If publicity is automatically free, then what is paid publicity? It's advertising. Advertising is a controlled method of placing media or placing messages in media. Advertising is, instead of me calling the news station and inviting them to an event at Lipscomb University because we're having commencement and we want to get some news coverage about commencement, instead of doing that, we will have a great ad or a great photo with the Lipscomb logo, and we'll put that ad in the newspaper to talk about, to promote one of our programs. Or we'll do a really nice billboard, which I'm sure you've probably seen on the highway here in Nashville. We'll do a really nice billboard promoting one of our programs, one of our colleges, one of our degree programs, right? That is a controlled method of placing media and message. Why? Because I have this information from my organization. I want my publics to see it and interact with it. And then I take financial resources to pay for the time and the space to get the exposure. Whereas publicity, I have whatever opportunity exists for me to contact media and share news with them. Whereas advertising it may not be news, it's just information that we think has value, and we want, and we've identified a media sponsor, if you will, or a place that will allow us to pay for the space and the time to access and get visibility to our publics. So often when we say free publicity, we don't even have to say free publicity. We just have to say publicity because publicity is free. Advertising is the publicity that is not free. And what's the word for that? Just advertising, okay? So I want to make sure we kind of get some really cool ways to understand what the definitions are. So for your assignment, you've each been, your presentation that you'll do or your slides that you're going to turn in, you each have a brand that you've been assigned, and you want to look at the brand and create examples or find examples of how that brand has presented their organization or presented their message using public relations, one using marketing, one using publicity, and one using advertising. And you come up with your own definition for these four as you present what you think that brand has done in each of the four categories. Really simple assignment, just a great way for you to be able to do some research and see what a brand has done and give an example of that in your slides. I highly recommend that you use images. Of course, you want to put some text in there, but it's always good to have a couple of images too, that correspond with the definition. Any questions about that assignment? Is it pretty simple? Okay, all right. So Some fundamental differences, as I said, PR, you're going to focus specifically on your publics and the messages that are important for the success of your organization, whereas advertising and marketing is going to specifically focus on some type of consumer experience, some making a sale, making a purchase, things of that nature. Whereas public relations, we're really more relationship focused. Does it sometimes take a relationship for people to spend their money? Most times it does. And so that's why you see the overlap from time to time. So is PR a profession or a trade? It's actually a little bit of both. In PR, there is no licensing that is required. So most times when you hear people say they do PR, what essentially they're saying is they are a PR practitioner. You practice public relations, okay? You are a public relations practitioner. The only difference is that in our industry, there is no licensing. There is an organization that I'm a part of, and we have a chapter on campus, the Public Relations Society of America. And you get a chance to join that organization and participate as a practitioner. But there is an accreditation process that you can opt into if you want, but it's not required to practice public relations. In the chat, I see, okay, thank you, Caitlin. Yes, I absolutely have a company for you. Thank you.
No problem.
Yep. Well, we're going to skip the theory stuff. I think you can, that's good stuff, but we're going to go ahead and skip it. I want to get to the meat. I saw Liz, Liz put a question in your discussion, if I'm not mistaken, and we'll talk about some of the differences in tonight. So all of this is good stuff, but look at it on your own time. This is the definition I want you to eat and breathe and sleep with for the next 3 weeks, all right? This definition right here. Just use that definition and everything you're doing, everything you're thinking about as you're like, what in the world did I get myself into in this Maymester? What is this stuff about? What is this lady doing? What is this assignment about? Stick with this definition. It's going to help you frame every assignment, okay? And that's what this course is about. That's it. Building and maintaining mutually beneficial relationships with your publics, an organization and its publics. Everything else is just the fun stuff. Sometimes it's the tough stuff too, like crisis PR and crisis communication. Sometimes it's the fun stuff like social media. Sometimes it's the fun stuff like event planning. Sometimes it's the hard stuff like raising money and lobbying, things of that nature. So let's get into that. Now, what you will also see is that PR has a process. It is called the ROPE process. Now, right here, you see RACE, the Rossi process, but it's also called the ROPE process. ROPE stands for Research, Objectives, Planning, and Evaluation. Here, I'm showing you a similar model that stands for research, action, communication, and evaluation. This is what you will need for your final assignment, for your final project that you're going to create. You'll go through the steps of researching your problem, coming up with some action steps to deal with that problem, and then coming up with the execution to communicate how you're going to deal with that problem, and then evaluation, how are you going to evaluate the success of your PR plan. Now, some of you may already know this, but for those of you who are not majors, I would just want to make it clear. There is a difference between PR and journalism. Journalism, you're very focused on being objective. In PR, you're focused on being subjective. What does that mean? In journalism, I'm supposed to, and we could watch the news nowadays and not get this, but I'm supposed to be very objective in my storytelling, which means facts only, #facts only. Well, not anymore, right? I'm sure if you've been watching the news, and I know a lot of y'all don't watch the news. None of my students watch the news. I don't understand. But anyway, listen, I don't even watch the news anymore, so it's all good. But think about it like this. Journalists, they have one channel to tell their stories. They usually have one channel. They're a blogger, or they're a vlogger, or they're anchor, a TV anchor, or they're a newspaper, reporter, etc. They focus on a mass audience. It doesn't mean that multiple people in different audiences can't get the message, but they want everybody to get the information. They are objective, which means they're facts only, and they're usually only writing and maybe have writing and have images. That's it. PR, we have a lot of stuff. We have words, we have sounds, we have images, we have events, we have all kinds of stuff that we use to tell a story. Instead of being objective observers who are focused on hashtags facts only, we are advocates. We're the champion for the brand. We are the advocate for that brand. We are subjective. We are loyal. We are about the brand that we serve or the client that we serve. So we have to be very subjective in that way. We are the advocate. We are the problem solver coming to the space to communicate about that brand. We also focused on very defined publics. So based on demographics, are we talking to the general public? Cool. If we're talking to the general public, then let's pull out some segmented publics in that too. Are we also talking to parents and college students and Hispanics and African Americans and women and millennials and baby boomers? We segment our audiences in public relations. And we also use a variety of different channels. We use all kinds of stuff, social media, traditional media, again, face-to-face communication, all kinds of things that we may use. All right. Is there a question? Oh, okay, no. All right. We've gone through this a little bit. This is just more information for you to read and to dig through. I want to get to this, the specialized practices of PR, so that you'll know that there are various facets to PR, and some that we probably won't get to cover in this class, and because we have a short time, but we'll go through the majority of them. These are very just easy to understand, and I want you to kind of look through them. If you have any questions, let me know. I think it was Liz who asked the question. Liz, was your question in the discussion about one of the specialized practices PR? You're muted.
Yes, it was between lobbying and one other one I'm forgetting.
Oh, is it the development lobbying?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, so lobbying, actually, let me go to public affairs. Who was that sit there in public affairs? Caitlin, all right.
Yeah, that's me.
I do that.
Okay. So public affairs is, there are specialized practices of PR. So sometimes you have people who are generalists, which means they do a little bit of everything related to PR. But then you have folks who specialize, and you have firms or PR firms and PR agencies that specialize in a certain kind of PR, right? So I give you some different kinds here, or within a corporation or a very large organization, you may have departments, right, that focus on different types of communication strategies and communication tactics that allow them to interact with their public in a certain way. So for instance, here's the first one, investor relations. So a very large corporation, I used to do some work with Johnson & Johnson, and at their corporate headquarters, there were thousands of people, and particularly in their communication department, they had people everywhere, right? But they did have a segment of people who were specifically focused on investor relations. Why? Because it's a Fortune 500, and they've got investors, and they've got they need to be able to communicate in a very effective way about the financial standing of the organization, and that's a 24-hour job. All right. So as you're going through this process, you're thinking, well, what are types of PR that people can practice? Okay. Now, notice that I don't have like social media and stuff like that. You can do that, but every brand needs social media. So that's not necessarily a specialized practice. So, to answer the question, so I want to go to public affairs. Public affairs is the kind of PR where you're really focused on the relationship between governmental organizations and your community, because there is public policy that needs to be influenced. Okay, so public affairs firms, public affairs practitioners, if you will, in the PR space, they're very focused on working with elected officials. They're very focused on working with governmental organizations. They're very focused on working with even municipalities and things of that nature in order to build these relationships and maintain relationships with community groups. Because ultimately that relationship is going to influence some kind of public policy for the people. All right. Now, what's the difference between public affairs and lobbying? And then I'll answer your question about development. Lobbying is a little different. What a person who is working in the space of PR and lobbying is doing is they are digging deeper, going beyond public affairs and attempting to influence some type of piece of legislation or regulation that is made by the government. So they're actually going downtown. They're actually going to the federal government and going back and forth to DC to figure out what kinds of meetings, what kinds of conversations, what kinds of materials, what kinds of events do we need to be producing in the faces of the decision makers so that they can ultimately shape legislation that influences the public. All right. Or that impacts the public, rather, that impacts the public in the type of legislation that we want to see being advocated for. Now, development, this is a typo. Thank you for saying why this is. Why didn't y'all just tell me this was a duplicate?
I mean, like, we didn't know any better.
Yeah. This is a typo. That's why I was like, I wonder what is similar between lobbying and development. Nothing. To answer your question, this is a typo. Development is the part of public relations where you're focused on raising money. That's it. You are building mutually benefit and maintaining mutually beneficial relationships for the purpose of raising money, establishing capital, building great relationships with donors. It's usually in a nonprofit space. It's usually just in a fundraising space. For instance, the university has its own development department. A nonprofit organization will have a development officer. Their role is to go out and win friends and collect checks. And whatever that means, whether it means going through events, whether it means media, whatever it means, social media, then you're shaping your approach around trying to win donations and develop those relationships around your fundraising needs. That's what development is. So no, this has nothing to do with lobbying. That slide is in the wrong place. Okay. So other specialized types of PR, I have it listed here for you, a variety of different ways. I think these are mainly self-explanatory. I'll give you an example with media relations. Media relations is more of the type of role that you would take on if you're working in an industry that's heavily publicity based. So if you're really working with media day in, day out, trying to collect stories and make stories and get coverage for your organization, that's a really heavy type publicity role. You'll see that in sports and entertainment. You'll see that in pop culture, where the news cycle is 24/7, 365. And so that's what those roles are for. Internal communication. Internal communication is essentially employee communication or employee relations, internal relations. So working within a very large organization and developing communication for the organization itself that doesn't go externally, doesn't go to their consumers or doesn't go to their customers, doesn't go to the external publics. It's only for their employees, for their board, for their, the people who are in the internal stakeholders. And then crisis communications, this is where it gets kind of sticky because these folks are all about when there's a fire, a literal fire and a figurative fire. When there's trouble, when there's trouble within the organization, these folks are dedicated to figuring it out. What should we be saying? What should we be doing? And what's going to keep us out of trouble? Not just being reactive, but being proactive. What are some strategies that we need to take to keep our organization out of trouble? Now, you're not going to have someone say at Lipscomb or at, a nonprofit who's solely dedicated to doing crisis, because those organizations don't need crisis 24/7. But very big companies, companies that have a high risk, high liability, those kinds of organizations will often need crisis, someone who's dedicated to being on a crisis communication type role 24/7. Okay. All right. So final thoughts. This is a big industry. It's expected to grow even more. The industry's been around for a long time. You'll see that in the history chapter when I do the video lecture for the history chapter. Industry's been around for a very long time, and $1 billion industry, in a global industry. And so you're not taking this, I hope you're not taking this class. If you don't just have to take it, hope you're not taking it for nothing, because this is great information that you're going to be able to utilize and take with you from now on, just to put in your pocket, whether you're a major or not. It's good to know what the landscape of business is and what to expect and how it plays out into the overall marketplace. All right. So what you'll see next is us walking through, and this is going to be a separate lecture as well. What you'll see next is chapters 11 and 12. And in chapter 11 and 12, it's the first part of the strategic planning process. And I have it separated into chunks. And what you'll see me do when I do the separate one for your final project, I'm going to narrate chapters 11, 12, 13, and 14 for you to help you prepare for your final project. And that includes the rope or the race, the racing, we call it race, racy, whatever. We really call it rope. But what I presented to you earlier with the wheel, right, that cycle, I'll have a separate one taking you through this process. I want you to think about, this is important for you to think about. There's always a problem to be solved in PR. But here's the thing. A problem is not always a bad thing. A problem can be a good thing. I would like for you to think about, let me see if I can go back. I hate to go so fast. A problem is either an obstacle or an opportunity. This has concern or opportunity. A problem is always an obstacle or an opportunity. Remember that. A problem is always an obstacle or an opportunity. An obstacle is how we would traditionally define a problem. I've got a problem. It's an obstacle. That means it's something that we need to get over. We need to fix. We need to do something about it immediately. But an opportunity is also a problem. An opportunity is also a problem because guess what? If we have something good going on and we don't do anything about it, then it could turn into an obstacle. So think about the idea of an opportunity being a good problem. Okay? And how do we take advantage of this good problem that we have? How do we promote this great new product that we have? How do we get people involved and engaged in this awesome initiative that we've developed? How do we let people know about this new research that we've discovered, right? That's an opportunity. On the flip side of that, again, your problem can be an obstacle. It can be, we're in trouble And we want our consumers or our audience to know that we care about them. We're in trouble and we need to fix it, or else we're going to lose sales. We're in trouble and we want the public to be informed how to take care of themselves or how to respond in lieu of that trouble. Okay. So again, when you're thinking about how you frame PR, how you frame the work of a PR practitioner, you're thinking about being a problem solver. That's what you are. You're thinking about, how can I advocate for this brand, advocate for this organization, and solve the problem, whether it's good or bad. And all you're doing is coming up with solutions. You're generating solutions for the good or the bad. You're generating also solutions proactively, reactively. Generally, you want to be as proactive as possible. We'll talk about that too. And you'll see that throughout the lectures that I prepare for you. But let that be a base, if you will, for how you think about the approach to public relations. You're starting with the problem and realizing that that problem is either an obstacle or an opportunity. The obstacle being something we've got to figure out, we've got to get over, we got to improve, or the obstacle being something we got to take advantage of, or the opportunity being something we've got to take advantage of. This is great, and we really want people to know, and we really want people to be involved. All right. The rest of this, as I said, I'm going to do a separate lecture for you in preparation for your final project. That's going to be chapters 11, 12, 13, and 14. But I want you to go ahead and read and go through these slides. That's why I gave them to you week 1, so that when you get to your final project in the last week of the Maymester, this won't be the first time you've seen this. Okay. But I will be doing a separate narrative on video and recording it for you for those last 4 chapters, because those last 4 chapters are what you're going to need for your final project. All right, what are we doing on time? Oh, we're doing pretty good. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to stop my share and ask you if you have any questions just about what we've talked about thus far. Any questions about anything thus far?
For the project on our various companies, can you hear me?
Are you referring to the homework assignment?
Yes.
Okay.
For that like PowerPoint slideshow that you want us to submit. Do you want like on each slide just kind of like a brief explanation of how we see like public relations, advertising, yada yada on each one? Okay, because
maybe just if you were to do one each, like an explanation of PR, and then one for publicity, one for advertising, one for marketing, and then give an example for your brand.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. If you would separate them out, I think that would read really well.
Okay. And was there a certain amount of information that you wanted on each of those?
No, I think I highly recommend a visual for each of your examples, because a visual is helpful to be able to see, this makes sense. But then also maybe a little bit of a narrative, not a whole lot of text, just an example of what are we looking at? Like what's this photo? What's this image here? What's this screenshot? Like, what is this? What's this video? Like, and just a narrative, if you will, but no, not a whole lot of text.
Okay.
Yeah. Other questions, anything that we've already talked about, and then we can look at the syllabus and I can go through the Canvas with you. Anything else? As I said, a lot of this is self-guided. You have all the slides. I'm going to narrate the slides for you though, as well, and record video lectures for you. And you'll know what slides you need to be reading and listening to in preparation for your homework, your discussion questions, and things of that nature. All right. So let's look at Canvas real quick. All right. So here on Canvas, I have the assignments here. You'll have a discussion for each week. You'll have a discussion question. Next week, you'll have 2 discussion questions. But you'll have a discussion question and there'll be a prompt that you want to answer. And just make sure you're checking the due dates. We'll look at those in a little bit too. For your press release, let's look at that real quick. Your press release is also coming up on Friday. And I give you in the files, you have a blueprint of what you can use to write your press release. Not looking for it to be perfect. Just want you to follow the order, come up with maybe an organization or a nonprofit or your favorite local business, your favorite small business, your favorite nonprofit, and you want to kind of make some news for them, if you will. You have something that you want them to announce. Doesn't have to be anything that already exists. It can be something that you've created, but you want to announce this, and the organization wants to announce this. It can, as it says here, it can be a new campaign, a new event, whatever, an exposed person, a new partnership, and you want to be thinking about, what would be a good idea? What would be something good to announce for this organization? All right. You want to develop a quote in that. And again, you have examples in the file section, and you have a blueprint there that you can use. And again, not looking for it to be perfect. This is just a draft. And I'll ask you to maybe make some changes before we end the semester, before we end the Maymester. But I just want to be able to give you a chance to write a press release. And I want to be able to see how you're writing, because writing is a huge part of PR. So we just want to be able to see how you're writing. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just follow along the blueprint that's in the file section in Canvas and go ahead and just try it. Try to see what it feels like to write your press release. Some of you may have already written a press release before, so it's not that, it's not a huge, new thing for you, but you're having to create your own news. All right. So I want you to get creative and have some fun with this. Now, meanwhile, there are case studies that you have. I think every week there's a case study or two, and you want to just read the case study and answer the questions at the end of the case study. You have your presentation that's due on Friday, and then you'll have two more. Let me swap that out. You'll have two more that are due before the end of the semester, and then you'll have your final project, which I haven't added yet. But your final project is where you create a PR plan for, again, a local nonprofit or your favorite nonprofit or your favorite small business. And I'll give you a blueprint for that as well. And that's essentially it, you all. We can look at the dates for everything. Everything's kind of chunked together. But what you'll see is ahead of time, I'll be posting every week where it says chapters here. I'll be posting a video for those chapters. I'll be narrating the slides for you so that what you see will actually make sense. Okay, so you'll be reading and see like, what in the world does this mean? I'll be narrating it for you, okay? But then you can always go back and listen to what I'm saying, as well as just kind of take notes on what you see in the files, all right? So this is self-guided, but it's also me narrating the whole process for you and you getting very creative. And as I said, PR is a science, but it's also an art. I give you a format, and this is the way, we'll operate. You have a format, you have some guidelines, you have some instructions. Follow these instructions, have fun with it, and be creative with it. Okay? I'm one of those professors. Follow the instructions to a T. As long as you follow the instructions to a T, you can have your way, have fun, put your spin on it, but you gotta follow the instructions. Once you follow the instructions and you've nailed every piece of the directions, then your flair, your personality, your creativity, your own just ingenuity, whatever you want to do that with your assignments. Okay. That's no pressure though. I'm not telling you to like go crazy, but I do want you to feel as if you're not just checking the box, and it's not just, oh, I can do that. We can do that. A, B, C, check, circle B. We're good. That's not this kind of class, because it's not that kind of class, because PR isn't that kind of thing. You've got some guidelines, you've got some parameters, you work within that, and then you have fun with the rest. And that's what PR is about, and that's what this class is about. So any questions about the schedule? Any questions about the schedule that we have in the syllabus here? Anybody concerned about the schedule? Anybody thinking that you may need to reach out to me offline about meeting deadlines and think no late work is accepted, FYI, no late work. So if you know you're going to have a problem submitting something, let me know way in advance. Because if you send it after the deadline, I won't count it, just FYI. Any questions about the schedule? Again, work ahead if you want. I'll be uploading next week's case studies into the Canvas before end of week. You can work ahead as much as you want, you know? And if you work ahead and you got some free time, feel free to do that. If you have questions, feel free to shoot me an email. Oh, here's the thing about online classes. I can't remember how many of y'all said you've had online classes or not. Here's the thing about online classes, where you're not meeting on like this every day or every couple of times a week. Make sure that if you have a question for me, that you really specific in your question and that you need to email to me. You know, if like you say, well, it's not working. Well, what is it, right? just things like that. Like make sure you're very specific about Professor Ellis, A, B, C, D, and E. Can you clarify? Blah, 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 blah. Also, in your discussion questions, as we saw tonight, make sure if you want, feel free. I always like it when you put a question in there for me to answer in the video lecture. So as I'm recording the video lectures for you, before I go, I'm going to check the discussion questions. And if I see you have a question that you want me to answer on the video, I will answer on the video. But that's a great way for me to scan the discussion and see what thoughts and questions you have. And then I'll put that in the video, and then I'll post the video. For your final presentations, I will ask you to either record it on Zoom or record it in Integrity. So you'll do, or maybe even Flipgrid. We may do Flipgrid. Have y'all done Flipgrid yet? Okay, we've done them quite a bit in some of the other communication classes. But we may do Flipgrid as well. So this is for the final presentation that you'll do. And I'll ask you to record just like this, just put your screen up and narrate what's on your presentation, explain your presentation. I'll ask you to do that either in Flipgrid or maybe Integrity, because you all have access to Integrity, I think still. So in Canvas, so I'll ask you to maybe use Integrity to pull up your PowerPoint and just present your idea, present your project. And what I usually do is once everybody's done and everybody turns them in, I share them with the class so you can see what everybody presented on. If you're curious, you can take a look at it. All right. Any questions, anybody?
You said that you're going to post the syllabus with the links to your recordings then on Canvas, right?
I'm going to post, so each week for the chapter materials, all of the files will be in Canvas so that you can read them in advance. But what I'll do is, as that week approaches, I will narrate the slides for you and upload that into a Zoom and put the Zoom into Canvas.
Okay.
I also might even like email you the Zoom link so that you can just click it from your email too. Just kind of depends on how Zoom does the recording.
Okay.
Yeah, but you'll get a notification that, hey, here's a new video, and it'll be the exact slides that are in Canvas.
Okay.
Anything else, y'all?
In your email, you mentioned that we are to add comments, ideas, and thoughts to the corresponding posts. Email, but was there a certain number that you wanted us to respond to?
No, I just asked that you respond to a classmate.
Okay.
Yeah, so each week, you know, if you see, like, once you post, you know, you'll see somebody I think you're the first person to post it. Somebody will go and respond to you right? And so you'll get a notification and go back, and then there'll be an opportunity to respond to somebody else. So I just ask that once you all post you're in the discussion, that you also just respond to a classmate. Sometimes the conversation gets really good, and like you say, oh, somebody responded to my comment, or somebody responded to Veronica's comment. Let me see what they said. It gets really kind of fun, and you see things that you wouldn't have saw, initially. So yeah, I just ask that you respond to at least one of your classmates. Anything else? Well, okay. Well, I won't see you again until the end of the month. But you'll hear my voice, right? And you'll see the video, you'll see the slides. And you have me on email. If you have something super duper urgent, you do have my cell phone number, because it's summertime. You're doing 16 weeks of a course in 3 weeks. You might need to call me. But seriously, only if it's like super urgent. I will be on email. Last summer, I went on a mission trip to Puerto Rico. We went down to do some cleanup from the hurricane in Puerto Rico. And so it got kind of crazy last semester, but I'm not traveling this month. So I'm here. So feel free to reach out to me if you need me. I'll be on email. I say I have office hours, but you email me whenever you want. And I'll be able to check it. Usually I'm, at the end of like late night, I'm probably not going to be checking email, but during the day I will be checking email. So if you need to reach me. But again, specifically, I will tell you, when you send your email, like, be very specific in the email, because again, you can't just knock on my office door and we're not on campus. So if you do have an email a question, make sure you're super detailed in the email so that I can give you a straight answer. Okay. And then again, emergencies, some super urgent, some super, you need me immediately, just call my cell phone. Okay. Anything else? All right. We will adjourn for the evening.